Most arguments in spiritual circles happen because people use the same word for three different things. So, right up front, look at the three labels on screen. In this episode, awakening means a shift in perception. Kundalini is an energetic model people use to describe intense mind-body phenomena. And enlightenment, as we'll use the word here, means an enduring shift in traits, how you show up day to day, not how intense one moment feels. Here's our roadmap, on screen now. We'll cover the vocabulary trap, what these experiences feel like from the inside, the nervous system version of energy, and a simple red flag safety protocol. This distinction matters because these practices are scaling up fast. In 2022, about 17% of US adults reported using meditation in the past 12 months. This is not fringe anymore.
And it isn't always just stress relief. Depending on how you ask, surveys find roughly a quarter to a third of meditators report at least one unpleasant, challenging, or distressing meditation-related experience at some point. Most of the time, it's temporary. But we should normalize talking about risk without turning it into fear.
To navigate this safely, we're going to use one simple map for the whole episode. You can see it on screen now. On the vertical axis, intensity. How loud, strange, or energetically charged it feels. On the horizontal axis, stability. Can you sleep, work, relate, and stay basically kind while it's happening?
That distinction is vital. In many traditions, high intensity with low stability isn't the goal. It's often treated as imbalance, sometimes even framed as a spiritual emergency, or simply as distracting scenery. Right. From a brain and body perspective, we're not scoring how cosmic it feels. We're tracking arousal and regulation, whether the system is integrating or getting overwhelmed.
Exactly. Think of the map like this. Intensity is a volume knob. Stability is the real-world test. Keep that grid in mind. We'll start by fixing our definitions. Welcome back. Here's the trap. And you can see it on screen, with the three symbols pointing at one question mark. Most spirituality arguments happen because one word gets used for three different things. So we're going to separate three layers. The experience you had, the map you used to explain it, and the long-term outcome. Start with the broadest label people reach for: spiritual awakening.
Think of awakening as a modern umbrella term. It usually points to a shift in how you perceive yourself and the world, sometimes sudden, sometimes gradual. That can include identity shifts, like feeling more like the witness of thoughts than the thoughts themselves, and vivid changes in perception. But crucially, an awakening is often a temporary state, not a permanent upgrade.
Right, a state, not automatically a trait. Now, where does Kundalini fit? People often use it like a synonym for any intense energy.
That's a common confusion. Kundalini isn't just intensity. It's a specific explanatory model from certain tantric and yogic traditions. Classically, it describes a latent spiritual potential, often symbolized as a coiled serpent, unfolding through a subtle body map. It's one way a tradition explains a particular kind of somatic and energetic process. And this is where the label can spike anxiety. In a clinical setting, someone might notice heat, shaking, tingling, or tremors, sometimes just stress physiology, breath effects, or a big emotional release, and immediately call it Kundalini awakening because they saw that phrase online.
So they take a sensation and attach a massive story to it.
Exactly. The story carries weight. It can make someone feel chosen, or make them terrified they're breaking themselves. That's why we focus on function first: sleep, grounding, relationships, safety, and whether the person is actually becoming more stable over time.
Which tees up the third term, enlightenment. If awakening is the shift, and Kundalini is a particular energy map, What is enlightenment?
In many traditions, enlightenment is a claim about stability. It's not a fireworks show. It points to a durable reduction in reactivity and suffering. How you live, not what you felt once. And even the translation gets tricky. In Buddhism, Bodhi is often rendered as awakening or enlightenment, and it's linked to a root that can mean waking up and knowing, understanding. But in modern English, enlightenment can sound like a permanent finish line, which isn't how every school talks about it. From a brain perspective, this distinction matters. Short-lived state experiences often track with measurable shifts in networks involved in self-referential processing, like the default mode network, alongside reports of unity or ego softening. Those episodes can be minutes, hours, or longer, but they're still states. A trait change is different. If practice genuinely reshapes your baseline, less reactivity, more regulation, you'd expect slower, longer-term learning and plasticity. There's some evidence that training can relate to brain changes over time, but it's not a clean, one experience rewires you forever. It's the difference between a weather event and a climate shift.
Perfect analogy. Weather versus climate. So here's our working map. Awakening is the opening experience. Kundalini is one specific traditional model people may use to interpret certain sensations. And enlightenment is a claim about stable, lived change, especially around suffering and reactivity. We're going to use the 2x2 on screen for the rest of the episode. Intensity on the vertical axis, stability or function on the horizontal. The trap is assuming high intensity, top left, equals high enlightenment. It usually doesn't.
Right. You can have high intensity and low stability. That's the danger zone, where people get overwhelmed and need support, pacing, and grounding, not more hype. And you can have low intensity but high stability. That's often what mature practice looks like: quiet, kind, and functional.
Now that our terms are clean, let's look at what these experiences actually feel like from the inside. We've got listener stories that land in these quadrants perfectly. Let's stop arguing about labels and look at what people actually report. In this segment, we'll separate what happened from what it means. Researchers in the Varieties of Contemplative Experience project grouped these reports into 7 domains: body, emotions, mind, perception, will/drive, sense of self, and relationships. You can see that 7-part wheel on screen. Now let's stress test the map with 3 listener stories. Case 1. We'll call this the body buzz. The listener writes, "After a breathwork session, I felt heat rushing up my spine. Now, when I meditate, my body shakes involuntarily and I hear a buzzing sound. It feels like I'm plugged into a wall socket."
In some yogic lineages, spontaneous movements during practice are described as kriyas, unbidden movements arising as attention and breath shift. The heat and current feeling may be framed in those maps as prana moving, sometimes described as shakti or kundalini. That's a traditional interpretation, not a medical diagnosis.
From a nervous system view, strong breathwork can push the body into high arousal, and if someone is overbreathing, changes in blood gases can produce tingling, trembling, cramping, and a vibration or buzzing quality. Add focused attention on the body, and normal internal signals can feel turned up and unusually vivid.
The sensations aren't automatically dangerous, but the impact matters. Are they sleeping, eating, and functioning? A key red flag is a wired, escalating state with little or no sleep, racing thoughts, or risky behavior, especially if it's new for them. If symptoms are new, intense, or frightening, it's reasonable to pause the practice and talk to a clinician.
So on our map, watch the dot on the chart. This goes high on intensity. But stability depends on daily function. Does it integrate cleanly? or does it start to run the person? Case 2. The inner light show. The report says, "When I concentrate, I see bright geometric patterns and purple lights. Sometimes the whole room looks like it's in high definition. It's beautiful. But is it enlightenment?"
This can happen with closed eyes, intense focus, or low external input. The visual system can generate its own patterns, often simple geometry, flashes, or color fields. In other contexts, similar effects show up in sensory deprivation. If these visuals start happening suddenly with eyes open, especially with headache, confusion, or other neurosymptoms, that's a different situation worth medical attention.
In some Buddhist meditation manuals, lights or mental images can be called nimitta, a sign that concentration is stabilizing. The standard advice is pragmatic. Treat it like a roadside sign. Don't grab it. Don't fear it. Return to the practice.
So, interesting, often benign, not automatically awakening. On the map, this usually lands at moderate intensity and high stability. Watch where it plots. Unless someone becomes anxious or obsessed with chasing it. Now, case 3. This is the one people confuse the most. I feel like I'm watching my life from behind a glass wall. My thoughts happen, but I am not thinking them. I don't feel real. Is this awakening, or am I going crazy?
Some traditions would recognize a version of this as witness consciousness, sakshi, the sense that thoughts and feelings arise in awareness rather than being the whole of you. In a healthy unfolding, it comes with clarity, steadiness, and more compassion, not numbness or panic.
Pause there. That behind glass language also matches depersonalization, derealization. Clinically, the difference isn't just the story you tell, it's distress and impairment. Does it feel spacious and workable, or terrifying and disabling? Duration, triggers, and context matter too. If they can't connect with their kids, can't feel pleasure or love, or they're spiraling into fear, we treat that as a clinical problem. Reduce intensity, ground in the body and routine, increase support, and get professional help. More meditation can sometimes worsen it.
That distinction is the whole point. Watch the chart split into 2 outcomes. The same observer sensation can be a high stability shift, a quiet upgrade, or a low stability slide where life starts to fray. Sensation can look identical. Function tells you which track you're on. Takeaway: intensity is not progress. You can have fireworks in your spine and be unraveling, or you can feel nothing dramatic and be sleeping better, kinder, and more steady. In this show, we prioritize function over fireworks. But why do these shifts happen in the brain at all? In the next segment, our neuroscientist breaks down the mechanism.
Before we look at the brain, one promise. Explaining the mechanism is not the same as explaining it away. We're not debunking the magic. We're mapping the knobs. When someone reports Kundalini or an awakening, it often tracks shifts in real biological systems.
So let's talk knobs. If someone feels intense heat or electricity up their spine, what's actually happening?
Often, it's a mix of arousal and interoception. Arousal is like your system-wide volume control. One key hub is the locus ceruleus in the brainstem, which broadcasts norepinephrine. When that volume climbs, everything can feel louder, faster, and more significant. Then there's interoception, your brain's readout of internal signals.
That's the microphone in this analogy?
Exactly. Turn up the volume and the microphone sensitivity, and you can get feedback, buzzing, vibration, heat, electricity. It's not imaginary. It's your signal getting amplified. And on screen, that insula highlight is a good reminder. A lot of this is the brain turning body noise into a crisp, attention-grabbing story. And we can measure pieces of this. A 2025 meta-analysis of 29 randomized trials found mindfulness training improves self-reported interoception, how clearly people experience and relate to body sensations.
Okay, body sensations. But what about the self disappearing, the unity experiences?
That brings us to the network layer. The default mode network, DMN, is strongly linked to self-referential thinking, mind-wandering, and the inner narrator. In some deep states, that narrator quiets down. When the story of me gets softer, but awareness stays bright, experience can feel centerless, like oneness.
It sounds peaceful, but why do some people get terrified?
Because of predictive processing, a useful way to think about the brain as a prediction engine. It doesn't just receive reality, it actively interprets it to keep you oriented and safe. Intense practice can loosen those interpretations. Suddenly, a tree isn't just a tree. It's hyper-vivid, charged with meaning. For someone who's already stressed, sleep-deprived, or destabilized, that rawness can tip into panic, dissociation, or psychosis-like experiences.
So the mechanism is similar, but the reaction depends on stability.
Precisely. And we're seeing this even in deep emotion circuits. A 2025 PNAS study used intracranial recordings in epilepsy patients, electrodes implanted for clinical reasons, while they did a short, loving-kindness practice. After just 10 minutes, the researchers observed changes in beta-gamma activity patterns in the amygdala and hippocampus. Not proof of enlightenment, but real-time shifts in limbic rhythms.
That's incredible. But I have to ask about the risks. You mentioned breathing earlier.
Yes, this is the physiology trap. A lot of intense Kundalini-style episodes are driven, at least in part, by forceful breathwork. Hyperventilation lowers carbon dioxide. That can push your blood toward respiratory alkalosis and constrict blood vessels in the brain, so you get tingling, lightheadedness, dizziness, and tunnel vision feelings that can seem cosmic. Often, it's basic chemistry and blood flow, not a special signal from the universe.
So intense doesn't always mean enlightened.
Never. Intensity just means the knobs are turned to 10. The goal is integration, being able to steer. That's why we look for green flags in your life. Sleep, steadiness, relationships, workability, not just fireworks in your nervous system.
We're not here to pathologize spiritual experiences. We're here to prevent harm. The same opening can be meaningful and destabilizing. So we need a simple triage system.
So, looking at that map, how do we know we're in the danger zone? What's the scoreboard?
Intensity is not the scoreboard. The scoreboard is stability, sleep, daily functioning, and reality testing. Can you stay oriented and check your beliefs against the world and trusted people? If you're losing those, you're in the red zone. The biggest red flag is sleep collapse. If you've had little to no sleep for multiple nights but feel wired and unstoppable, treat that as urgent. It can start to look like mania or severe sleep deprivation, especially with racing thoughts, grandiosity, a special mission, or trouble telling what's real. Pause immediately and get help.
In practice circles, we also see a dangerous rule. I must keep going or I will fail. That's a trap. If you're hurting, stopping isn't failure, it's safety.
Exactly. If you feel unsafe or in crisis, reach out. In the US, you can call or text 988 or use the 988 chat. If you're in immediate danger, call 911.
Let's flip it. What does healthy integration look like?
Green flags are often quiet, like that checklist on screen. Your sleep stabilizes, you're less reactive. you recover your baseline. You can wash the dishes, go to work, and stay connected without feeling superior. If it makes you kinder and more functional, it's working.
Okay, I'm seeing some red flags. What's the protocol for this week?
Step 1. Downshift inputs. Pause intense breathwork and long, pushing meditation sits. Switch to walking, gentle movement, and basic routine.
We call this grounding. Warm meals, regular hydration, and simple physical reality. Weight in your feet, breath in your belly, contact with the world.
Step 2. Stabilize attention. Journal facts, not interpretations. Write what happened, when it happened, how much you slept, then stop.
And if they need to see a doctor, many people fear being dismissed.
That's a real risk. When you talk to a clinician, focus on function and symptoms, not theology. Don't ask them to validate your Kundalini awakening. Tell them, I haven't slept in 3 days. I'm having panic attacks and I can't focus at work. That gives them a clear clinical starting point. Sleep, anxiety, safety, so you can stabilize first. We can sort out meaning later, once you're safe.
So the goal isn't just to have the experience, but to survive it.
The goal is to embody it. Intensity passes. A grounded, functional life remains. That's the real achievement.